very important aspect of water homeostasis. We have talked about water consumption, water intake, we have talked about water excretion. But there's also another one that's very important that we can not but talk about, and that's movement of fluid between compartments. We talked about earlier the intracellular compartment and the extracellular compartment. And so there's also movement of fluid from the intracellular compartment to the extracellular compartment when there's need. And then there's also movement from the extracellular compartment to the intracellular compartment when there is need. And the separation between the barrier that stands between the intracellular compartment and the extracellular compartment is simply the cell membranes. It's the cell membranes. So there's flow of water continuously through the cell membrane into the extracellular or into the intracellular, depending on the need of water in the extracellular and the extracellular. So now, the main regulator of movement of water from the extracellular to the intracellular or from the intracellular to the extracellular is the hydrostatic pressure. Is the hydrostatic pressure. So when there's a difference, when there's a signal that signals the difference in the pressure, there's movement of water, particularly osmotic differences. So now, you remember that osmosis is the movement of water from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration. So what this means is that if the solutes, if there's solute, if solutes are higher in concentration in a particular compartment, naturally water moves from the place or the compartment where the concentration is lower into the compartment where the concentration of solute is higher. So that means that in the movement of fluid or of water, if solute concentration is higher in the intracellular compartment, there will naturally be movement from the extracellular compartment to the intracellular compartment. Now, also, if solute concentration is higher in the extracellular compartment than in the intracellular compartment, there will naturally be movement of water from the intracellular compartment to the extracellular compartment. So it is the osmotic balance or osmotic pressure that regularize or rather that regulates the movement of fluid from one compartment to another compartment. And so it is important that this um, solute concentration is maintained. If, for example, the solute concentration inside the intracellular compartment is high and there is no movement of fluid from the extracellular to the intracellular compartment to regulate it, that cell will shrink, and when that cell shrinks, it alters or it disturbs and hinders the activity that should naturally or normally go on inside the cell. Those activities will not go on. Those activities, those metabolic activities will not go on. And so when those metabolic activities are affected, it will affect the body generally. Also, if there is more higher solute concentration outside of the um, in the extracellular space, and there is no consumption of water to dilute that high solute concentration in the extracellular space, and there is also not movement of water from the intracellular to the extracellular to cause that dilutional effect, that will throw that individual into a state of dehydration, and dehydration on its own has its own negative impact on various activities of the body. So so that's how it works. Now, if there is also water, too much of water movement or water conservation inside of the cell, and the water is not being moved into the extracellular compartment, there's accumulation of water, that cell can swell. And when that cell swells to the point that it has gone beyond the elastic limit of the membrane, the cell can rupture. So there's a negative effect associated with the movement of fluid between the intracellular and extracellular compartment if they are not properly regulated for one reason or the other. Now, under most conditions, the movement of water between the intracellular compartment and the extracellular compartment is maintained within limits that are consistent with the survival of that individual. So that means there is a regular pattern of maintenance of water level in the intracellular compartment and also in the extracellular compartment. So this that is the much information about uh, water homeostasis or water regulation. So in the next lesson, we'll talk about electrolyte homeostasis or electrolyte balance.